The Hoka One Mach 5. 100 plus miles deep into the shoe. Is it going strong or have we gone wrong? Let's talk about it. So before we get into it, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're already subscribed and watching this content. Thanks so much. Love you guys a lot. Specs for the Mach 5 are right here. And as per usual, going to showcase what the outsole of the shoes look like, and we're just going to immediately get right into it after that. So that's the left foot, as you can see all the way across the shoe. That's the right foot, which always has something cool going on with it. Here's a further back kind of take at it before we obviously get into it some more, as you can see, both sides. And this is something I noticed right before I started filming this video, especially in the left foot maybe. Actually, no. Yeah, we'll start with the right foot here in this case. Is that the wear and tear on both shoes is fairly equal. And now there's a couple of things that could be in play for that. One, of course, I think is that as I'm running a little bit slower, some of the more micro tendons in my feet have started readjusting, catching up to the left foot in a way. So the stride is becoming a lot more even as a result of running slower. And in a way, in this particular case, as I'm going to get into in a minute here, I've been kind of forced to run slower because of training at elevation, right? So when I was training in Silverthorne at 9,000 feet, as I did last year too in the Mach 4, believe it or not, when we're running uphill and, it's 9,000 feet, the breathing and the blood flow is just not the same as it would be at sea level or just slightly above. You do end up, as a result, running slower with a higher heartbeat as it is. So as a result, just basically running slower in the shoe has just been good for me overall. And like the Mach 5 is one of those shoes that will support whatever speed you try to run it through. So if I'm trying to go slow, the shoe almost in a way responds in this in that positive sense, where it's not like going to kick you to run faster. It's gonna be like, oh, we're going slow, cool, let's keep it nice and easy. It's responsive in that sort of nature, and I give that to this bottom layer of foam, which I think is the EVA foam outsole on the shoe. Whereas the midsole, the ProFly Plus, again, very supportive when you have some like little ankle mobility stuff going on, because the foam is soft enough to take that sort of impact depending on how your ankle is going to roll around in this particular shoe. So that's a plus overall in the technology. As a con, I think I've mentioned this already before. As you can probably guess, the EVA foam does wear a lot because there's no... I hope I phrase this correctly. There's no rubber on this shoe on the outsole. It's just foam, and that's just directly what's impacting the ground. And two things as a result happen, which I think are pros. One, the pro in this case, is that the shoe is very quiet when you're running. So if I'm like running in the streets of Chicago, or like out here in Algonquin, for example, like I'm not going to startle anyone if like my steps are just like making massive sounds or anything like that, because I think I've had shoes that like scared the crap out of people, such as like the Tempo Next Percent, where you can hear me like from a quarter mile away just stomping across. And as a result, I think the impact of the shoe is less than something that has like a harder rubber that's going to make the shoe last longer. So that kind of ends up being your trade-off. But the con, I guess, in that result is, again, you could startle people if you like sneak up on them. You're like, 10 feet away from them and you're kind of stomping away in the shoe. Nobody's going to hear you and you're going to freak someone out. So definitely it's good to like try to make as much noise as you can in this shoe if possible, or just, yell something like on your left or on your right or coming up, things like that. So that's worth noting in this particular pair, is that it is quiet depending on your strike pattern in the shoe. And as I mentioned, those are the two pros. And then the con, again, in this case, is the lifespan of this shoe is questionable because there's no rubber reinforcement. So this is 100 plus miles deep. I haven't shredded too much of the foam, but it's coming close in this toe box area to hitting the ProFly Plus foam. The real concern is once we shredded this midsection of the shoe off and we're now completely exposed to the ProFly Plus. I did that in the Mach 4s and it was just not good. Running in the shoe was terrible at that point, and it also helped aggravate my already existing peroneal tendon fibula stress reaction injury that I was developing after and like a little bit before the Chicago Marathon as well. So something to note there again is just the technology is great, but the lifespan sucks. So maybe it's worth considering having a few pairs of Mach 5 in your lineup just as a precaution, or you just stack up on them shelve them up somewhere, and then once the time comes, you go into that deep place in your closet and you find them and you just launch them out once again. So that's the nice thing to consider at this point. The upper, again, still breathing, still pretty nice. I haven't had it in too many conditions where I had to test the moisture containment levels of the shoe, because I was running in like drier climate for the most part in this particular Mach 5. And yeah, so far, you know, it doesn't like smell after a run. It's not heavy while the moisture is being contained in the shoe. I think it's got just enough breathability where it's like just perfect on that front. The next thing probably worth addressing, I think that was a difference between the Mach 4 and the Mach 5 that I didn't talk about before, was that this heel guard area has a lot more reinforcement that the Mach 4 had, which I don't really notice it too much. I do notice a little bit more of like a scratching in this heel area if I have like a Nike no-show style sock, which is like below the ankle. I'll feel it kind of wear a little bit here, but it's not like cutting into my ankle or like visibly like doing any sort of damage. It's just you notice this like back tongue area just kind of scratching a little bit there in the heel area. But even so, after running like, you know, a half marathon in that sock with this shoe, no visible wear and tear. The shoe was holding up for me for as long as I could there during that half marathon session. I was pretty exhausted during that day because it was like a whole day of driving from Silverthorne to Algonquin and then just running right away. You do have that time resting in the car, but it's not really resting. You're still kind of like in a zone while you're driving. So I digress. But at this point in time, like the Mach 5 has been a really good trainer for, at least on paper, I thought it was a good trainer for the Alpha Fly, but the Alpha Fly had some issues, which I've probably addressed in a previous video here. And then as a trainer for the Vaporfly Next% 2, it's doing just fine. Again, the major difference between having this as a trainer for the Vaporfly Next% 2 is a 4mm offset versus the Vaporfly Next% 2, which has about an 8mm offset. So that's just the one thing to consider. But in terms of like a much larger scale of compatibility, this is just a great everyday running shoe that will give you speed, and it's a good recovery shoe in the sense that you'll have some comfort in your ankle and like forefoot and I guess like particularly in your metatarsal area for this shoe while you're training in something that's like a carbon plate, whether it's like the Metaspeed Sky or the Vaporfly Next% 2 in my particular case. So yeah, overall, 100 plus miles deep. I am still concerned about the lifespan of the shoe, but all things still considered, I am still training in this thing comfortably and I'm not having any sort of major issues with it. So I would say 100 plus miles deep, you're still going to have a really good time in this shoe. No significant like wear on my body from this shoe at this point in time. So I think I'll end the video here. So if you have any other questions, comments, or other thoughts about the shoe that I may have not addressed, let me know in the comments below and we'll just talk about it from there. So thanks again for watching this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.